Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and following on from Thursday's disappointment at Ibrox, Celtic needed to bounce back in fashion, and today they done exactly that. Celtic 3, St Mirren 0. They thought they chopped down the lead at the top of the table to 11 points. Well, it's went right back to 13. Yep, after all of that, after the fallout and people in the comments section telling me that Rangers were back, well, it was all for nothing. However, Brendan Rodgers not too happy today, so we've got a lot to cover in this match reaction. Bear with me, we're going to try and talk about all of it. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe, it would be much appreciated. Apologies for the slightly delayed match reaction tonight. When I got back from the game, I decided that I would watch the tail end of the Man United-Liverpool game. Got my dinner and stuff, so not that I need to explain myself to you guys, but just in case you've been wondering where I am, if I was maybe ducking you or putting off a match reaction tonight. No, absolutely not. We can't go 13 points clear at the top of the table and not talk about it. And it's probably been for the best, because ever since that period of time where I would normally film the match reaction when I get home, there's actually been a wee bit of an outburst from Brendan Rodgers, which has caused a major divide online. Now, you might know what I'm talking about, you might not. We're going to come to that towards the end of the video, but stick around, I'll tell you my opinions on it. I'll try and look at things in a fair and just manner as well. But Brendan Rodgers certainly not happy with the Celtic fans today. Weird one. Celtic 3, St Mirren 0. A good result for Celtic after that defeat to Rangers on Thursday. We bounced back the way we had to with, 3 goals, a clean sheet and a decent enough performance. Nothing to talk about for the ages. The typical Celtic Park victory in domestic football, you could say. We get in, we get the job done, and we do it if it has to be pretty or if it's ugly. And St Mirren certainly tried to make the game ugly. You could see that right from the first whistle. If you play Football Manager, you'll be familiar with the time wasting setting. They had that dragged right up to the top bar. They were trying from the first whistle to waste as much time to frustrate Celtic, and they kept themselves compact, they kept themselves tight in, to the point where Celtic really kind of struggled for the first half an hour or so to find a breakthrough. There was glimpses of opportunities showing themselves to Celtic, but we weren't fully taking them, and we had to bide our time. I think a lot of people were getting, and Brendan Rodgers did touch on this, and we'll come to it. Brendan Rodgers did touch on the fact, I think some fans were maybe getting a little bit agitated as time went by, but these are difficult teams to beat. St Mirren, who have had, by all accounts, a good season for their standards. Stephen Robinson with a very established brand of football now at this point. It doesn't surprise me when St Mirren come to Celtic Park and play the way they play and make life difficult for us, because they're a team who have a record for that, and Stephen Robinson's a manager who has a record for that. And I think it was the last game of the season, in fact, last year, Trophy Day, where it ended 3-2 and St Mirren gave us a right good go, because they're a good side and they're well within their rights to come and do what they do, and Celtic will struggle with that. We can't beat every team 5 or 6-0, sadly. That's the reality of it. I think some people think that's the bare minimum, but it's not. Winning, getting 3 points, that's the main thing. And today, being 2-0 up at half-time, finishing the game 3-0, especially when you've got to bounce back from a game that can be as derailing and demotivating as Thursday's game in the derby, I think is pretty good. A lot of changes to the side, of course, a lot of players who were given opportunities to try and prove their point or stake a claim in the usual starting 11. I think some done better than others, but I don't have any major complaints from today's performance. I know that these games can be tedious, but when you're sitting there and it's 1 degree, it's freezing, and the team are playing so much football, I think the thing that comes to my mind most of the time is I just want to be leaving Celtic Park with a win. I couldn't imagine leaving Celtic Park in that 1 degrees temperature with a loss. So yes, St Mirren are always going to make the games tough, and Brendan Rodgers navigated it well. The players handled it well. We've seen a goal from a corner kick, for the goodness sake. So for me, Celtic won the lottery today. But we'll try and talk about certain aspects of it, certain players' performances, and of course touch on that post-match press conference, which has everybody talking. So as I said, it took Celtic time to get cooking. Nicholas Kuhn found the opener around 33 minutes in. That was the first of 2 for him this afternoon. Another great performance from Kuhn. I thought he looked really good this afternoon. One of his quieter games by all accounts, and even at that, finds 2 goals. But I thought a lot of what we were trying to do was coming through his movement with the ball, the way that he can dribble with it. He had a cracking opportunity to actually have us up 1-0 earlier in the game if he could find the pass to Luke McCowan, if you remember the kind of counter-attack, the break, and Nicholas Kuhn was away and McCowan was in support, but the pass was just off. And it's I wonder how different it would have felt in the stadium if we got that goal much earlier. But I think when you come into these games with the anxiety amongst the support of a defeat like the Rangers game, it does make things a bit more tedious and a bit more impatient. I think that's natural, and it's something that I think we navigate well most of the time, and then that includes today. But if you can't wait 33 minutes, then your arse is just quite clearly making buttons. But Nicholas Kuhn gave us the lead. It was a good goal. That was then strengthened by Austin Trusty's second, and that was a fantastic header from a corner kick. We don't see it that often. I think that was what Celtic were really lacking today, was a consistency in crossing, because it was sometimes we send a great ball in, and it wasn't met by any recipient, and then the next cross, when people are ready to be on the receiving end of it, it was hitting the first man, or it wasn't getting on off the ground. And we need to get a consistency in our crossing game, you know. We need people to be there on the opposite end. I mean, Arne Engels sometimes sends an absolutely fantastic ball in, and it will scoot by everybody because no one's reacting to it. But then other times he's hitting the first man from the corner. So there's no consistency in both ends, I think, when it comes to crossing. But that's been a problem we've spoke about throughout the entirety of the season, I think, and beyond this season. I think that's especially corner kicks. Let's just go corner kicks specifically here. There hasn't been a consistency there for years. There hasn't been a quality there in years, I feel like. You know, we score one in every 30, it feels like. I would love to see the actual statistic behind it, but Austin Trusty was there. New chant for him and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Absolutely love it. The changes that we've seen, we obviously seen Hatate and Scales dropped after being the most criticised players from the match on Thursday. I think that both men took... I'm getting this completely wrong here. The 2 men that took their places, I think, took them well. Austin Trusty finds himself a goal, kept the clean sheet. A couple of dodgy passes in there, but I think that goes part and parcel with being out in the cold for a few games and coming back in. And I think that Luke McCowan played fine as well. Nothing too spectacular from him today, but a performance that was ultimately fine. And Bernardo, who was dropped for Arne Engels, I thought Engels had a good game, I must say. I thought he did. 2-0 up at half time. I don't have many complaints from the first half. The manager might, though. And then it was into the second half, where I think things were generally a bit quieter, but still, there was no threat at all. I mean, if you look at the statistics from today, they'll show you there was no threat at all. Celtic did their business and got around it pretty well. The only goal came through Nicholas Kuhn. It was a cheeky wee finish, by the way, from Kuhn. The way that he kind of set himself up and found the goal. And he's walking away with 2 more goals to add to that tally this season. The numbers are just going up and up and up. And some people might call it stat padding, but this ain't stat padding. This is just a man who's at the top of his game. He's easily player of the season as things go so far in Scotland, although maybe Lawrence Shankland will somehow take it, I don't know. Nicholas Kuhn has been fantastic, a great goal. I thought his second goal was just so cheeky the way he went about things, and that's a guy that's full of confidence. There was that opportunity in the first half actually where Dyson Maeda was met with the St Mirren keeper running towards him and a lot of space to do something and make something happen, and he completely fluffed it. One of those opportunities that makes you say, if he had any brains, he'd be dangerous, Dyson Maeda. If you picture Kuhn in that situation, somebody who's just a lot more composed and maybe has a lot more confidence in his game at the minute, I think we could have got another goal out of that today, and something maybe quite spectacular. But Dyson Maeda just takes I don't know what he tries to do, if it's a shoot or pass, or he just panics. If that was Kuhn there, oh man, I think we could have been looking at a special goal perhaps, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. Second half, a bit quieter. We made changes. We seen the likes of Hatate come back into the team, and I thought he looked fine when he did come on. But generally, just a quiet second half. Lucky to have a second half, I suppose, with the power cut at Celtic Park or the outside areas in Parkhead. So thank God the floodlights stayed on, or we might not have been able to finish the game today. But 3-0. Look, listen, absolutely fantastic to just get back on track. We have this January schedule is just as busy as December and November time, which is obviously a bit strange because for a long time we got used to the winter break coming in and you'd be without Celtic for maybe 2 or 3 weeks and then into the Scottish Cup Well, this time round, that's not the case. We played Rangers on Thursday, we played St Mirren today, we played Dundee United on Wednesday, we played Ross County on Saturday, we're into the Scottish Cup, we're back into European football. January is, I think on paper, maybe the busiest month we have this season. So it's crazy. To win these games is the important thing. We can't get too bogged down if some of the performances aren't to the level of intensity that you would like. You've got to be realistic at times, and I know that we all love the free flow and attacking football, and especially what we were seeing at the start of the season, but there's a reason that comes to a point where it starts to slow down and things might be a bit stagnant looking on the pitch, and Rodgers has his explanations for that, but we have so much football, the intensity will drop from time to time. Ultimately, if we're winning 3-0, I couldn't care how we do it. So, yeah, good result, good win. And look where we are now. 15 points clear at the top of the table. I literally, and I don't even joke when I say this, had a Rangers fan in the comments on Thursday say, mark my words, we win the league in the last game of the season. Yous are going to crumble, we're back. That was the words of a Rangers fan. I had a few more coming in and giving it lip. And they've went straight away to Easter Road and dropped points. It's fantastic. It's almost as if they haven't learned the lesson yet again. And they never will. But now we return to basically where we were before the Derby game even kicked off. We're 1 point lesser off than where we were. We obviously were 14 points clear. We're now 13 points. Effectively, nothing has changed. And all the kind of panic I don't think was needed from some supporters. You win games, you lose games. You're going to lose Derby games. Yes, the manner of how we lost it was bad, but we've responded well today. I expect us to respond well over the course of the month. And things should be fine. But we've got to talk about Brendan Rodgers, haven't we? Which I've left quite late on in this video. I imagine that I will dig a bit deeper into this tomorrow on the channel. If I even want to revisit it, it's a very divisive topic, and I don't think it's time to spread negativity and it's time to spread divisive topics. I hope this is something that we can just move past beyond today. But Brendan Rodgers' comments post-game have stirred up quite the conversation online, and yeah, he's not happy. So in case you missed it, basically Brendan Rodgers has come out and said that he's not happy with the Celtic fans today for, number one, their reaction to some of the play in the first half, and number two, for their singing of Kieran Tierney's name at the end of today's game. Let's cover the first one first and foremost and get out of the way. I do agree with the manager. Some people need to have a wee bit of a word with themselves. I heard it first hand in the ground today. It was doing my head in. Listen, I know that football is objective in the sense that people enjoy what they enjoy and people don't enjoy certain styles and certain things. But we can't be constantly barraging the opponent's goal with shots. What have we reached the Celtic fans to think that that's the case? You know, if games are tough and sometimes you need to pass the ball backwards. I don't think it helps that we had a manager like Ange Postecoglou whose whole aura was that he doesn't want to pass the ball back. There's that famous clip of him telling the players to stop passing the ball back, but it did happen, and it happens now. And if you're 0-0 half an hour into a game waiting for that first goal, just stay calm. I can understand when it's 10 minutes to go, maybe you're still chasing a goal and you're passing the ball back, then you're more than entitled. But I can see why Rodgers is annoyed at that. I could hear it, you know, those moments where maybe Taylor would pass it back, or McGregor would pass it back, or Trusty would pass it to the side of him, and you would hear a collective kind of groan from certain supporters, and I just, yeah, it's a bit much for me as well. I wholeheartedly agree with the manager on that point, especially when you're in the position you're in, when, you know, now we're 13 points clear at the top of the table. It's quite bratty in a way. I don't know. So I do agree with the manager on that. However, shock horror, Ryan118 disagrees with Brendan Rodgers, and very much disagrees with Brendan Rodgers about his comments on the Kieran Tierney situation. I've already posted on Twitter about this, so some of you may already know my opinions, and I'm not going to get overly passionate about it because, can I make this crystal clear right now? I'm not that bothered. I can see why Rodgers has said what he said, and honestly, from a professional point of view, I can reason with why Brendan Rodgers has said what he said, because he needs to back his players at the end of the day. However, I do find it a tad hypocritical and a bit much. Now, I don't know what spawned this. I don't know if it's the reaction of Greg Taylor that's made Rodgers go out and say what he said. I don't know if it's just the mood that Brendan Rodgers has found himself in today. It's made him say what he said. He didn't seem like he was in the greatest of moods in his post-match presser. He did seem a bit irked, maybe for a number of different reasons. I don't know what's spawned that comment. He didn't need to say it. He could have left it out, and he's causing his own divide within the support here. But I do find it a tad hypocritical and a bit over the top, I must say. I have huge respect for Greg Taylor. He's been a great servant to the club. Chanting Kieran Tierney's name at the end of the game today is not disrespectful to Greg Taylor, in my humble opinion. Now, if you find it disrespectful, if Greg Taylor finds it disrespectful, that's fair. You know what? I can't speak for everybody. I certainly can't speak for Greg Taylor. But I don't think it should be looked at, and I think that that's his own fault, or that's your own fault for taking it disrespectfully if you do. Because at the end of the day, Kieran Tierney is a Celtic hero, a modern day Celtic hero. He's one of the best players this club has produced in the past 10, 20 years. One of the only players to leave Celtic to go to a traditional Big Four club in England. So I don't think Celtic fans should be blamed for being excited about his return to the club. I think that's totally unfair. This is just Celtic fans being excited that the return of the so-called prodigal... You know what I'm trying to say. I'm not even going to try it a second time, make an arse of myself. The so-called prodigal son, you know, he is the boy that everybody was heartbroken to see go. Celtic fans are obviously and should be very excited at him coming back, and for singing his name at the end of the game in preparation for his imminent return, so it seems. I don't think the Celtic fans should be held to any sort of disrespect for that. I don't think that's fair. And I especially, and this is why I said it's a tad hypocritical, I don't think it's fair when Brendan Rodgers is the man who so evidently is the one signing him. This isn't as if the board have been planning this out for years. This isn't as if it's been happening or guaranteed. Brendan Rodgers is the one who's made this happen. Brendan Rodgers is the one signing Kieran Tierney. So evidently, Brendan Rodgers wants Kieran Tierney back as much as the fans. And I know that that means that there's a level of respect that you should treat Greg Taylor with on the potential way out. But it's not about disrespecting Greg Taylor. It's just Celtic fans being excited, and that's that. Now, I suppose this narrative of what has happened changes depending on your view of Greg Taylor. If you're a huge Taylor fan, you're obviously going to be on his side and on the manager's side probably. If you've been critical of Taylor and ready for him to move on, then you're probably swaying towards more of the Rodgers is wrong side. Ultimately, I really like Greg Taylor. Ultimately, I'm dying for Tierney to come back. I just don't think it's fair to say that it's disrespectful. I just don't think that's an excuse that washes with me when he's just somebody who we'd all die to see back in a Celtic shirt and have done for years. So if Greg Taylor is upset by those chants, my sympathy only stretches so far because it's not a mark of disrespect to him. Not on my part. I sang the Kieran Tierney chant today. It wasn't to get it round Greg Taylor or tell him to get to fuck. It wasn't because I want to see him go. It's because I'm excited to see Kieran Tierney come back. So, if anything, use it as motivation, Greg. Use it as the tool to push you on to bigger and better things, whether that's at Celtic or not. That would be my final opinion on it all. I just don't think it's very fair of Rodgers to come out and say, listen, they shouldn't be singing it. At the end of the day, I've always been an advocate for if you pay the money, you sing for what you want, whether I agree or disagree with it. You come to the game, you shout what you want, whether I agree or disagree with it. Just like if you want to sigh or be annoyed at the club passing it, but the team passing it back, fair enough. I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to tell you to get out the stadium for it. Just like don't think that should be the case with Rodgers saying shouldn't be singing a Kieran Tierney song. You're the one that's signing him, Brendan, because you want him, and the Celtic fans want him, and they're just making that known. So yeah, I hope this is something that isn't blown out of proportion over the next few days. I think it was something that it didn't really need to be said, and clearly has been spawned on by something. But listen, we'll see what the next couple of weeks brings, and whether Greg Taylor remains a Celtic player or not, fans are going to love seeing Tierney back. And just to finish off very, very quickly, and this was a great point that I seen from everybody's familiar. Everybody here will know Asim. Asim he's appeared on Axom and Celtic AM with Hamish and a few other outlets over the years. Great guy, huge respect. Shout out to you, Asim, if you are by chance watching this video. He put up a great tweet saying, if Jota was realistically coming back to Celtic, which he's not, by the way, just to clarify, but if Jota was to be in the papers with it being said, Jota's returning to Celtic, it's imminent, it's happening, talks are underway, negotiations are going well, and we turned up to Celtic Park and started singing Jota on the wing, you know, would we be disrespecting Dyson Maida or Nicholas Kuhn? No, absolutely not. We'd just be excited to see Jota coming back. And this is what I mean. I think that a lot of it is to do with this perception that exists of Greg Taylor. because maybe he's not a fan favourite, and because he has been under such critical evaluation from Celtic supporters over the years, and because he's only got 6 months on his contract. But the club have undoubtedly offered him one. He's not put pen to paper. He's in that position. I don't think it's disrespect. That's my 2 cents, if you even care. Right, that does it for today. Thank you for joining to the match reaction. It's probably the longest match reaction I've done in a long time, so I'm gonna bounce. Right, take care. God bless. See you tomorrow.